Live. Boom. All right, now let me send the link out on Twitter. What's up, folks? Pulling up. I know that's no one right now, but in a
It
minute, in a
will be in a
minute,
second. In a second.
in a minute. We definitely got some notification gang. We definitely got
We
some
got
noti
Jabril in
squad.
the chat.
When they get that notification, they pull up because you know what we're about to do. We're about to talk Nets. Nets world, baby.
We
Stop
got a
kidding
lot to
yourself.
talk to. It's ridiculous. So many things. More than just games, more than just being in the stadium. It's exciting. It's exciting
Nets
stuff.
103. Best regular season ever. That's what they told me.
Yeah, we did
According
it. We made it.
72 games. Okay. And where's the link? Here it is. I see us. All right. We're going to start this up in 1 minute. Just got to send the link out on Twitter for folks.
Got to get it
Hopefully,
rocking.
hopefully we catch some lunchtime people.
Man, we did have fun at the game. That was a trip at the game, Jabril. That was a great time. I mean, obviously seeing them all on the court, but like everything else, talking to people that watch the pod, listen to the pod, talking to Ian and Sarah. It was just a good time. It was a good time. Our guy Eddie Gonzalez was there too. We linked up with him. We'll talk about it on the pod, I'm sure.
Yep. And now I am recording the podcast on GarageBand, so we're good there. I think my mic just muted, but now we're back on. Okay. And I'm going to count us in. I'll do the little intro, and then we'll get to it, man. Talking Nets 103. Wow. Look how far we done came. And I think I got the, let's see. Yep. Yep. We got voicemails. All right, here we go. I'm trying to find I got the voicemails queued up. Trying to find the intro song, but it's all good. We don't need it. All right, here we go. Talking Nets, episode 103. After the best regular season ever. That's what they said. That's what they told us. 24 games over 500. I think we have the best winning percentage we've ever had as a Nets team, New Jersey or Brooklyn. It's a good time to be a Nets fan. It's the Nets world. Stop kidding yourself if you think the Nets aren't going to the finals and winning it. It's time to believe. It's time to buy in. You have no reason to not think we're winning a championship. And we have been here on Talking Nets telling you from the jump, we're playing for a championship. And now it's about to get really real. In this episode, we'll quickly touch on the news and narratives. We'll also talk about the games against the Spurs, the Bulls, the Cavs quickly, but they don't really matter anymore. And then we'll close this thing with some voicemails, some reviews, and a look ahead into this play-in tournament and what we can expect from the playoffs real soon. Talking Nets. Let's get it. Intro music plays. Intro music plays. Intro music plays. And then I come back in and I say, yes, sir. Welcome back to Talking Nets, episode 103. Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn joining you on Monday, May 17th. The season is over. Well, the regular season is over. And y'all know that doesn't matter anymore. What happened in the regular season is cute. It's great. It was fun. It was challenging. But, man, now we get to do what we came out to do, and that's the road to the finals, the playoffs, 16 wins, and bringing a chip back to New York. Hudson Flynn, good morning. Can you do me a favor and say what's up to the people?
What's up, everybody? Slick Nick. Yes, I did just wake up. I had a great night last night. I'm enjoying my last week here at college, but look, we're going to celebrate what the Nets did this season on this episode. We're going to enjoy what we did, what we saw, the greatness that we were able to witness from everyone on the court, the Big 15, as KD called it. But look, we got to look ahead, right? This is what we built this team for. We didn't build it to be the best regular season team ever. It doesn't matter. We could have gone 72-0. It doesn't matter. If you don't win the championship, it doesn't matter, Keith. So that's what we're here to do today. We're here to talk about the past, the present, the future. And man, let's just get it.
I'm not going to shy away from it, Hudson. I'm not going to sit here and act like getting to the Eastern Conference Finals is enough. I'm not going to act like getting just to the finals is enough. We set out with one goal, and that goal is to win the NBA Finals. We went through a ton of different changes and challenges through this season, and that goal never changed, right? So despite all the changes, and when I say changes, I'm talking going back to firing Kenny last year. We knew that Kenny lost his job because he wasn't going to coach this team. We thought Greg Popovich could be a coach of this team. There were rumors of Mark Jackson, a bunch of other names. Then boom, splash, you get a Steve Nash hiring. And then his right hand and left hand men, Mike D'Antoni and Jacques Vaughn, two great hires, guys with head coaching experience, helped us get here. And then obviously you go into this season with KD and Kyrie and all the hype that's been around them since we knew they were coming here in the summer of 2019. And we finally get to see them on the court. They play a few games, and then the big trade happens. Might be the trade of the year, decade. We'll see. James Harden becomes a Brooklyn Net. We say bye to Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, Taurean Prince, Rodion Kurucs, and things change pretty fast. We get an MVP caliber player in here that would have been the MVP, in my opinion, if he didn't get hurt.
But he said it himself, Keith.
He said it. I'm the MVP. And he, it's not cocky. It's confidence. When we saw him even last week come back and say, I'm pretty good at this game. The guy knows what he is. He's put in the time and work. James Harden is someone that we as Nets fans knew right away the impact that he would have. I always harken back to Hudson and I on draft night saying, we don't care about the draft. This isn't a draft preview. Get us James Harden. That was in October. And then the Harden deal comes to fruition in January. Sean Marks, got to give a tip of the cap to Sean Marks. He stayed on it, and he gets us James Harden. And that changes his team. And fast forward to this past weekend, Harden goes down. He misses a bunch of games, and we didn't get to see the big three. And like Hudson just said, KD said, nah, we're the big 15. Basically letting y'all know what we've been letting y'all know. Don't just look at the big three. Look at these role players. We've been talking about the depth that we have. They said we traded away all our depth when we got Harden. Sean Marks went to work on that. Found some other guys. What a pleasant surprise Blake Griffin has been this year. Might have been, I don't know how we finesse that. That might have been if Harden is the biggest trade, we'll see how Blake plays in the playoffs. I think Blake might be just like the biggest free agent move, buyout. I don't know. And then when you look at Nick Claxton, right? We didn't trade away all our depth. We hid Nick Claxton from the world. Nets fans knew who he was. UGA fans knew who he was. But he didn't play in the beginning of the season. And they took their time with him. And we were all wondering, when's Clax coming back? When's Clax coming back? And now you get to see what type of savage that boy is. So, man, it's all good in Nets world. It's all good on Talking Nets. Your Brooklyn Nets are 48-24 to end the season. 26-16 in the East, 8-4 in the Atlantic Division. And we had the 1 seed for a little while. We end up finishing a game back. We end up finishing right on the heels of the 76ers, but that's okay. We lock up the 2 seed and we know our fate. We know who we stand to play against. So let's get into the news and narratives section of Talking Nets. It's pretty simple. We got to go back because last week we recorded on Wednesday, so a lot of news and things happened. First, I want to mention Spencer Dinwiddie's article coming out, the Forbes article, basically outlining just, how he's doing in his rehab, what he feels about the process, things to come. And I'll quickly read you 3 quotes from that. I put this on our Instagram. You should follow us on Instagram at Talking Nets. And here are those 3 quotes from Spencer Dinwiddie. He says, I know Brooklyn and Sean definitely wouldn't want me giving out anything official, But unofficially, I want to return for the playoffs. Dinwiddie is hopeful that he can return to the court in late June, likely around the end of the conference semifinals or the conference finals. Can you imagine that, Hudson? We got Harden back. Can you imagine getting Spencer back if we're in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Sixers and then, boom, we get a healthy Spencer Dinwiddie? I know it's still a pipe dream, but Spence is talking like it's a foregone conclusion. Like that's what he needs to happen.
I can see it because we've been talking about it, right? Ever since he started putting out those videos saying that he wanted to have the fastest, most successful ACL recovery in NBA history, he's been dedicated to it. He's been dedicated to the rehab. He's been dedicated to getting back. And everything he's done, all signs point to the Nets thinking he's going to be back and to him thinking he's going to be back. And look, we talked about it. He's talked about it. Everyone seems to be on the same page. Even the most conservative of all conservative injury managers on the planet, Steve Nash, seems to be on the same page, saying, don't count him out. Saying, look, I don't know when he's going to be back, if he's going to be back, but don't count him out. He's learned not to root against Spence. He's learned not to think that he can't. So look, I'm not going to think that he can't either. I think he's going to be back, whether it's for the conference finals, whether it's for the finals. It doesn't matter. I think he's going to be back, and I think he's going to be a major contributor coming off the bench, fortifying that point guard depth when the Nets need it most, when they're tired, when they've been fighting through the playoffs, when they're trying to get that 16th win. Spencer's going to be huge, and he's going to bring the Nets to that additional level that we know that they're going to hit in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's all hands on deck. If you've got a talented guy like Spencer Dinwiddie on your roster and he's healthy, you're not going to just hold him back. You're going to let him rock. And he also said this. He says, I'm going to be more than healthy by the time free agency starts. So just from a dollars perspective, you kind of have to, Dinwiddie said. $12 million isn't market value for a starting point guard. It's probably about half, 20 to 25. So obviously it's pretty concrete that I'm going to opt out. If Brooklyn wants to use my bird rights and sign me, I'd be thankful to be back and be able to go and try to win, hopefully a second championship. And if not, then as an unrestricted free agent, you can kind of choose where you want to go. It's an interesting situation to be in. Now, Spencer is one of our old regime Nets that got us to where we are. He is a guy that is a culture guy. He is a guy that actually was in the Nets' plans. They didn't trade him at the deadline, even though he was hurt. I would love to see him come back, showcase what he has, but I do think he goes and gets paid elsewhere. I just think someone is going to offer him, someone's going to pay him more than we can pay him, and he's not going to be a starter here. He's not going to be the main guy here. There's plenty other teams in the NBA that could use a main guy like Spencer Dinwiddie. You think he's staying? You think the Nets try and hold him here and will pay him and keep him a part of this? Maybe he could win Sixth Man of the Year with us? Or do you think they let him go test the free agent market and somebody in the NBA scoops him up?
Look, Joe Tsai, the Nets organization, they've never shown to be afraid of spending money. They've been afraid of injuries. They've been afraid of other things, but they've never been afraid to spend money. And with those bird rights, we have the ability to go over the hard cap to get Spencer Dinwiddie and keep him on this team. So from that perspective, I think if they believe he has a spot on this team, he's going to be a contributor, and that at that dollar value, he's going to be a contributor, then absolutely, I think the Nets get him. But if it's Spence and he's looking out for what he thinks he should do and where he should be at this point in his career, I see him being the starting point guard on a playoff caliber team. I could see him being the starting point guard on the Clippers, go back home to LA. So as much as I want him to stay, and I think that there's a good chance that he does, I see him ending up on a different team next year, and maybe the Nets see him in the playoffs. And I would love that because there's all love from Spence, all love from the organization, from the fans, from everybody. Maybe one of the most likable players the Nets have ever had. So wherever he ends up, whatever the next step is, we're always going to be rooting for Spence, and I'm always looking forward to seeing him play.
Okay, so that article came out last Thursday, May 13th, a day after we last recorded. Also, news came out Thursday, May 13th, that the Brooklyn Nets have signed Mike James for the remainder of the season. So quickly, just a congrats to Mike James. You are a part of this team. You are a part of this culture now. You're one of us, and we want to see you maybe step on the court in the playoffs and do work. Who knows? I don't know what the plan is for him, but he's done a great job filling in. KD talks about how high of an IQ he has. We got the Player of the Year last night with Blake to Kyrie to Mike James, off the backboard to KD. And, if you guys want to look more into Mike James's story, you should. I just saw an article today about how KD's brother influenced him coming to the Brooklyn Nets. You love little things like that. And I think, Katie and Mike have a relationship as friends. And now that's a player randomly out of Russia that is a part of this story. And when we have this Nets championship DVD, they're going to feature each one of these players. And it's just going to be a magical story about how this team came together. Next in news and narratives, I wanted to speak on this guy who we always have to defend, who we always have to speak on, Kyrie Irving. Kyrie. Now let's go back a couple games to his press conference Saturday where he chose to use his platform, as I encourage people to do, as we do here on Talking Nets, and as we're never surprised to see Kyrie Irving do. So instead of talking about the second to last basketball game where he scored 22 points, he decided to shift the attention. Now, something else I've said on Talking Nets and on my personal Twitter account is that we don't deserve sports. And we've actually built Talking Nets through this wild 2020 year into 2021, where there was plenty of times where Hudson and I had to get on the mic and talk about basketball when we know there's more important things going on in the world. In a negative way. Like, when I say important, like, people are losing their lives and injustice is happening. And Kyrie Irving decided that he was going to get on the post-game press conference and not just talk about basketball, but express how he feels about what's going on in Palestine, what's going on in other parts of the country, people being enslaved, people being mistreated for what they believe in, how they look. And Kyrie, you know how he's thinking. He's thinking about the world. And he said, my job as a human is to help humanity. And he didn't feel like in that moment he was helping humanity by talking about, his 22 points and why KD couldn't, go off in that game and only had 12. Hudson, I'll let you get your thoughts in on that before I go to the next Kyrie thing.
Look, it's a pattern. It's a trend. It continues. Kyrie knows, and as we all should know, that there are more important things than basketball. There are times, when we like to use basketball as a means of escape, a way to get away, as a reward for a functioning society. But that society doesn't always function. It's clearly not functioning in Gaza right now. It's clearly not functioning, certainly, in other places around the world. And Kyrie has known that, and Kyrie has gone out and used his platform to be like, look, there are things that are more important than basketball, and I'm going to speak on them. And he knows, right? Whether he gets hate for it, whether he gets love for it, it's going to get plays. It's going to get clicks. People are going to hear what he's saying, right? So he's using the platform that he knows he has to make a difference in the world. And that just makes it all the better, right? Because when you have stars on your team, you want stars that aren't just great on the court, but that are great off the court and that you can root for and that you can get behind. And I think Kyrie is really the personification of that, because he has been the Nets' biggest star this season. He had a historically great season, and he did so much great work off the court. There's really nothing you can do to slander him. He's a feel-good player. Nets fans, you should all love him. You should all thank him for being such a great representation of what it means to be a Brooklyn Net, of what it means to be a Brooklyn Nets fan, to what it means to be a global citizen. And that's really what it comes down to. Kyrie is using his platform to do good, to make change. And as Nets fans, as NBA fans, as sports fans in general, I think we should all be proud.
Yeah, sports are a distraction from real life. And honestly, we don't deserve a distraction from real life. That's why these things keep going on, because people aren't paying attention, and people in power aren't paying attention, or, people are abusing their power. And I appreciate Kyrie using his platform to speak out and draw, some attention to that. I mean, there was attention, but maybe, some people saw that and they looked into it more. And it's just a way of Kyrie doing more with his platform. And you mentioned, how he's basically just walked into history. He could be talking about that. Kyrie Irving has become the 9th player in NBA history to average at least 50% field goals, 40% from three, and 90% free throws made over a whole season. And that brings me to my second thing about Kyrie, because I get up and run the BJs this morning, and I got to hear Boomer Esiason on WFAN talking about, oh, well, he missed a bunch of games. He probably wouldn't have been able to do this if he didn't miss so many games, leave and disappear and be absent from the team. Would he have been able to do this over the course of, the 72 game season if he didn't have so many games off? And Hudson and I were talking before the podcast, and he brought up a good point. Maybe not. And this is where we control the narratives. I'll let Hudson talk about why he thinks maybe he wouldn't have been able to do this. But what I will say right now is y'all got to chill on New York radio. And that's why I tell y'all to listen to Talking Nets. They're always going to have a slanted New York Knicks approach, and they're also just going to have a slanted New York media approach. They also tried to tear this guy down by saying, oh, Boomer Esiason. Again, I was listening to the game, and Ian Eagle was talking about all the challenges and all the things that the Brooklyn Nets had to overcome. Yeah, like 34 different starting lineups, like 28 different guys playing with a rookie head coach in a year where COVID is pulling guys out, like KD, in a year where KD has a hamstring injury. Harden has a hamstring injury. Guys are getting elbowed in the face and they're out. Nick Claxton battled injuries. Landry Shamet battled injuries. The whole team, Blake Griffin had to rehab before he could step on the court. And Boomer Esiason decides to say, well, they mentioned all of these struggles that the Nets had, and they didn't mention Kyrie taking off and leaving the team. They didn't mention all of the, times Kyrie was MIA. And I'm like, no, dog, they didn't mention that because that wasn't a surprise to any of us. And that's not a challenge to any of us. It was regularly scheduled programming. It was something that we knew was going to happen. So, Hudson, why did you say to me earlier, with Kyrie taking that much time off, maybe it did help him achieve this?
I mean, look, first off, it sucks because I have to hate Boomer Esiason now, even though he is a University of Maryland great. I'm a big Terps fan, so that's really unfortunate for me. Whatever, he played in the 70s. Now I couldn't care less. Someone came in on Twitter last night, and first off, I want to give a shout out to myself and Key because the Talking Nets Twitter, just as we predicted, reached 10,000 followers last night or yesterday. Here we are. You love to see it. We're happy about it. You should all be happy about it. But when we got that kind of viewership, we're going to have clowns in our mentions talking about, trying to score points against Kyrie. We hate Kyrie, stuff like that, right? And so we had someone last night when we were talking about and celebrating how Kyrie had one of the greatest seasons of all time, especially as a point guard, especially with the amount of points that he averaged, that, he wouldn't have been able to do it if he didn't take those days off. He didn't have those mental health days. And I said, actually, you're right. I think you're right. I know you're trying to be a troll. I know you're trying to score points. I know you don't like Kyrie, but I think you're right. Because you know what? Taking mental health time, regardless of what your profession is, regardless of what you're doing, is absolutely something that is going to benefit your productivity in the long run. And Kyrie showed that, right? I don't think he would have had as successful of a season, not just from, maybe he would have missed more shots in those games if he would have played, yada, yada, yada. I think he was able to bring a better mindset. I think he was able to be more locked in, more focused, because he was able to take that time for himself to be able to rest, to recuperate, to make sure that what was important in his life was taken care of. And without it, I don't think he has the right mindset. I don't think he's able to get it done the way he did this year, having one of the greatest seasons of all time, let alone, one of the greatest seasons, in his career. So it's absolutely something that you have to consider. And I'm glad that he did it. I don't hate it. Why would I hate it? People saying Embiid should be in the MVP conversation. Kyrie played more games than Embiid, right?
Right. Between him being hurt and him load managing, Kyrie actually was on the court more than him.
But I agree. I think that it absolutely helped. And if he wouldn't have done it, I don't think he would have been able to do it because mental health is important. And it's especially important for Kyrie, someone who's, is actively involved in the issues that he's involved in. So it's definitely great that he took those days. And Nets fans were treated to a show game in and game out whenever he played, being the one star of our big three that was able to play the most games. It was just great to see. It was great to watch. And I'm glad that he took those days off.
Like clockwork, you could count on it. Oh, Kyrie leaves. The first game he comes back, he's going to cook. He's going to eat. And if you want to talk about a challenge, Boomer Esiason, maybe talk about the challenge Kyrie had fasting during Ramadan and playing NBA games. You know how ridiculous that is? Like, think about that. As an athlete, as a human being, not having food in your system and going out and playing at a high level. And then doing his medias when he could be eating, but he's sitting in front of a microphone talking about nonsense. So moving on, man. Kyrie Irving, hell of a season, one of the best ever. And you know what? The biggest success, and you know what? The biggest revenge, and you know what they can't deny? It's coming, man. A championship. They can't say anything at the end of the year if we hoist that trophy. When? No more ifs. When we hoist that trophy. When? So 5-game win streak to end the season, man. That's what I called for. After we beat the Nuggets, I said, playoffs start now. Playoffs started at halftime in that Nuggets game. Win out, control your destiny, control your fate, clinch the number 2 seed, get home court the first 2 rounds, and then wherever else the seedings lay, fine. And we'll get to the playoff seeding at the end of the episode, but we got to get into these games. And I'll start off with the voicemail first.
Hey, Keith, this is Eric from Philly, longtime Nets fan. Been listening to you guys for a while. Keep up the good work. Killing it. So excited to get Harden back. And I think it should be obvious to everybody, every Nets fan, every NBA fan, how much he means to this team. It's completely obvious by the recent games, that little losing streak, but let's look for them to get back on track. You got Harden. He's much better point guard than Kyrie in this offense, free of Kyrie to make some of the spectacular shots. You know what it is. All right, let's go Nets.
Let's go Nets is correct. Now, going into the games. Game 70 of 72. The Nets beat the Spurs Wednesday night in Brooklyn, 128-116. It was the return of the MVP, the bearded one, James Harden. He did not start. He comes off the bench with 8:06 left in the second quarter and just starts handling business. Just starts doing ridiculous stuff that he didn't miss a beat. It didn't look like he missed much time. And that's what I was trying to tell y'all over these last few weeks, that Harden is a solid hooper, man. He's solid body and he's a solid hooper as far as his decision making. Like, who is coming off the bench, throwing passes to Jeff Green through 4 defenders, over the head pass, dime right into Jeff Green's basket, flush. The step back threes, made a guy fall. Then he just did his little Harden bop, little shake, little dance. You love to see it, man. And, it wasn't the full big 3. We didn't have Kyrie because, the face contusion or whatnot. But Hudson, what were you thinking against the Spurs? It was just, okay, we're back home. We knew once we got back home from the road trip, Harden would play. It's time to handle business. We can't lose to these last few teams, and the Spurs happen to be the first one that we faced at home.
I'm thinking the MVP's back. It's that simple, right? He knows it. He went in the postgame. He said, I'm pretty good at basketball, right? Like, he is. He knows what he's doing. He's built for it. He's ready to do it, and he's just a great basketball player. I mean, my man had Devin Vassell popping his shoulder out of his socket as he fell down trying to defend him. It's just ridiculous. The things that he does in a basketball court, no one else can do. Literally no one else can do the way he does it. It's ridiculous. And at the end of the day, he's the MVP. He's back. So despite, we'll get to it, but not having his greatest game against the Bulls and then not playing in the game yesterday, it doesn't really matter much because it's the MVP. And he's back and he knows exactly how to play with this team. And the most important thing is that he is able to make this team so much better, right? We love KD and Kyrie. We love how they open up space for the team, and they have been passing in really amazing ways this season. KD even dropped 13 assists last night. Ridiculous stuff. But Harden, just with his vision, with his passing ability, just makes everybody so much better in addition to the stuff you already have from KD and Kyrie. So I think that's really what the biggest thing is, because at the end of the day, there's going to be double teams. There's going to be triple teams. There's going to be people trying to wall off KD. And at the end of the day, if you can pass the ball to your open shooters because they're going to be open and they hit those shots, the Nets can't be stopped, right? It's more than just a big 3. KD said it was a big 15, right? Those people up and down the bench can hit those shots. And as long as we get them in open positions and no one's built better to do it than Harden is, they're going to make those shots. Joe Harris led the NBA in 3-point percentage. Again, he's going to be hitting those shots. Landry Shamet got his shot back. Bruce Brown's been working inside with his little push shot in the paint. If they can activate those bench players, the Nets can't be stopped, and it'll be quick. It'll be wraps. It'll be 16-16.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to talk too much about, these games because they're regular season games. We handle business. We got it done, and now we're looking to the playoffs. But this is another game, everybody is active. A lot of guys just getting a chance to play. When KD said it's a big 15, everybody played in this game except DeAndre Jordan. And you got guys like Tyler Johnson playing now, getting active. TLC I won't really include, but he's in there, starting at the bottom. Alize Johnson got into this game. But Nick Claxton in this game, you're starting to see Nick Claxton come into his own. He had 18 points. Jeff Green another guy, just consistent, just guys in double digits. I think in the last few games, we've had multiple guys in double digits, not just the starters. So solid. Landry Shamet. You knew Shamet was going to get going with Harden because that's who got him going the first time he slumped. Shamet had 21 points to lead all scorers in this game. Solid to see. And we'll move on now to the Bulls game, which that was everything. I have to tell y'all, I'm so happy that I picked the right game. Honestly, like I was talking to Riley. Shout out to the Nets ticket office. Shout out to Riley, my ticket rep. I was talking to Riley for probably 2 months because when they announced that the fans were back, I was like, all right, they set up this IKEA furniture. I don't like how this is going on, but I need to talk to my ticket rep. I found out that my Brooklyn Nets ticket emails were going to my junk folder. I made contact. I wanted to get us in there, and I picked the last Saturday game of the season against the Bulls, Taurus season. Universe never unconnects. The Bulls were also my favorite team growing up, and then when Michael Jordan retired, I couldn't go to the Wizards. I had to rep the home team. It was all written long before, and we had 18 of us in the building for that. And I loved it. I love being back in the arena. I did like 2 or 3 laps around the arena just to like see everything and run into people. We ran into Sarah Kustok. We ran into Iron Eagle. We ran into our guy, Doug Barak, Chris too, from the Wingspan podcast. Who else did we see in there? I don't know. It was just good energy, man. It was like,
Shout out Eddie Gonzalez.
Oh, Eddie. How could I forget Eddie? Eddie came and found us at halftime. A couple fans, it's cool because Talking Nets was started, right before the pandemic and the end of 2019 into 2020. And Hudson and I just built this thing remotely through social media. But it's a great feeling to be able to stand in our arena with our fellow fans and, the people that work for our team and people that came on our podcast, like Sarah Kustok and Iron Eagle, and like meet them in the flesh, not through Zoom now. And it just all came full circle. So the Nets play the Bulls. This is game 71 out of 72. Let's play a voicemail before we get into that one. We'll play this voicemail just for chronological order.
Hey, Keith, this is Eric from Philly, longtime Nets fan. Been listening to you guys for a while. Keep up the good work.
No, didn't I just play that one?
You did just play that one, Keith.
Keith Hudson. It's over, baby. The Nets, James Harden back. There's no way we can lose now. He gets in there, drunken master swag, just doing his thing, slicing and dicing. No one had any idea. I mean, I felt like the whole time we were just playing with our food, man. It was just, man, I feel so silly. I feel so silly for ever doubting the squad, man. James Harden, QB1, all day, championship or bust. Nets world.
Nets world, baby. So we go into this game now having seen James Harden play. We go into this game now with the big 3 starting. Joe Harris is still out. That's something I also wanted to mention. Joe Harris's hip soreness. He missed these last few games down the stretch. I guess we won't see him till playoffs. And I kind of thought this about Joe Harris. I don't know. I've been saying for the last 2 weeks, maybe Joe Harris can come off the bench. Maybe Joe Harris doesn't have to be a starter. He can be a weapon as a shooter like that coming off the bench. And I feel like the organization has too much respect for Joe Harris to bench him or to take his starting spot away after all of these consecutive starts. But with him being kind of hurt, like he was hurt and then he came back into that game against, I forget who we were playing, but he was hurt and then he came back into that game and then he just wasn't playing. But either way, get well soon, Joe Harris. But don't be surprised if we see some tweaks with the lineup where maybe Joe Harris does not start in this first playoff game. Maybe he comes off the bench. But now into the talk of this game, game 71-72. Your Brooklyn Nets beat the Bulls Saturday afternoon in Brooklyn, a 1 p.m. kickoff, a 105 first pitch. We beat the Bulls 105-91. And we were there. And I know we've said that 100 times, but it was our first game back at Barclays. For me, I hadn't been in the Barclays Center since February 3rd, 2020. It was a great feeling. We had great seats to watch the game. We had a great view. In the first half, KD's Katie's shot would not fall. I swear I saw the ball go in and out of the rim 3 or 4 times where I was like, hey, it's just not falling for the guy. But Kyrie started cooking up. And, it was just good to see the big three back together. It's a game where it's like, this doesn't mean too much. I wanted somebody to hook off on Vucevic, but that didn't go down. And big three play their 8th game together, the first one in front of fans. And we get the win. We handle business. We do what we got to do. Jeff Green, you love what you see out of Dunkle Jeff. Jeff Green from 3. I mean, the guy is like, that's just another, add that on to like, okay, the trade of the season being Harden, the acquisition of the season, mid-season being Blake Griffin, but the vet minimum signing going into this year, I don't think any of us thought how big of an impact Jeff Green was going to be. I know I was pleasantly surprised with just how bouncy he is at age 34, just how solid he is shooting the 3 at age 34. Like, he's a player that we leaned on all year, and we can definitely lean on his veteran experience in the playoffs. Who else in this game? Bruce Brown.
You got to talk about Clax, though, too.
Please take it away and talk about
I want to talk about Clax because this is his 2nd game against Vucevic where he put him in purgatory. That man could not do anything. Vucevic was locked down. He was in prison. Put him in the Claxton Family Correctional Facility. It was ridiculous. Like, Clax absolutely is a defensive machine. Some people were saying on Twitter he's finished really high in some like advanced defensive mark, like Raptor, I think, and some of those other ones that I don't know about because I don't care. But he's a great defender, right? And that's his thing. Like, aside from being such a great scorer and also putting up double figures in all of the games he played with James Harden, he's a great lockdown defender. And it was great to see him do that against a big body, right? Because Vucevic is built. He's solid, right? And what we've seen Clark succeed against is, smaller guys switching onto ones. And, when smaller point guards try to hunt the switch for him, not getting beaten on that. But here he is playing against a big body, someone who can really bully him on the inside, or so you would think, and absolutely not getting bullied and having that energy. And he's bringing that little like one-handed point flex thing that he does now after he dunks. It's just a great feeling. It's a great vibe. I love what we're seeing from Clax. And man, you talked about Bruce. Bruce was always there, right? And I said earlier, we need secondary players to be able to hit shots when our stars are, getting locked down and getting double team, triple team. That's what Bruce did, right? He was hitting all those push shots. He was doing all that. And that's, what I took away from that Bulls game, aside from all of the fun we had being in the stadium, right, was that our secondary players can lead this team. When our primary, our 1A, 1B, 1C get locked down, when they put so much special attention on them, we're not going to lose because it makes it very easy for Jeff Green, for Bruce Brown, for Nick Claxton, for Landry Shamet, for Joe Harris, for all those guys to get their points, to get their buckets, because that's what they are. They're bucket getters. And when that happens, there's really just no stopping the Nets.
Man, Bruce Brown with the mask. I hope he just wears the mask the rest of the playoffs postseason. Kyrie didn't wear a mask, which we thought he was going to get fitted for one, and we see mask Kyrie. I guess he said, nah, it's not the wave. But yeah, Bruce had 12 rebounds, bro. And we talked about it at that game, that little push shot he does. He just ends up wide open. So, like, all attention can go on the big three, and Bruce Brown is going to eat, and he knows that. And I do feel like these guys like Bruce, like Nick Claxton, are ready to step into the playoffs and get it done. I'm so ready to just see this team at the highest level of competition. I'm so ready to see them compete under the bright lights and with the whole world watching every game so they can see what we see, so they can see who these players are, that they aren't the big three. So the world can know about Bruce Brown. So the world can know about Nick Claxton and Mike James maybe and Alize Johnson. I want those guys to get run because it's such an underdog story, right? They look at the big three as, the big dogs. They look at us as the favorites, but we've got a lot of guys on this team that were not anybody's favorite. All right, let's move on now. Let's play another voicemail, and then we'll talk about the last game. And this is, we've got 2 from our guy, Jeffrey. Jeffrey always comes through.
What's up, guys? It's Jeffrey, and now I'm fully confident that we're going to win in the playoffs. Blake and Clax as center should be set in stone. Their defense is unbelievable. We saw, I think Vucevic had like 10 and 11. Claxton's defensive energy, he's not willing to back down. And Blake Griffin, honestly, is the same as well. Kyrie doing Kyrie things. KD was a bit struggling from the field, but it's all right. He's going to turn it up in the playoffs. Harden, I don't think he scored double digits, but still a very big impact on the court. And Max Bruce, man, Max Bruce is built different. He's going back to his pre-All-Star game days. Even without the big three on the court, Jeff Green hitting big shots, Mike James running the point. And yeah, now I truly believe that this team can go all the way. I'm referencing the Bulls game, by the way.
All right, now let's move on to the Cavs game. So after KD struggled a little bit in the Bulls game, you knew he was going to erase that game. You knew he was going to come out the next day. And I think in the post game, they're like, with the Bucks in the Heat game and some of the seeding being on the line and you guys having to win, are you going to play tomorrow? And like before the reporter could finish the question, he's like, yeah, as a hooper, I want to play. Like as a basketball player, I expect to play tomorrow and like close the season strong. So game 72 of 72, the first 72-game season. The Nets beat the Cavs Sunday night in Brooklyn, 123-109. Jared Allen comes back on the last day of the season, gets to come back to Brooklyn. The 2 seed is locked with this victory. And then we got the exclamation point with the play of the year, which we already spoke on. Blake Griffin with the steal and Kyrie to Mike James off the backboard. Kevin Durant yams it. Nets world, baby, stop kidding yourself. Jeffrey told y'all we're going all the way. And Hudson, you got anything else from the Cavs game? I don't even care to talk about these games because y'all know they don't matter. And we got it done. We got the 2 seed. We did what we were supposed to do. There's no real need to analyze these games too much. But I'll throw it to Hudson and see what he's got to say from last night's Cavs game. There was great energy on Twitter. Talking Nets Twitter booming. Play of the year booming. All good things.
All good things. But like, look, the only analysis you need to do is see that like Reggie Perry and TLC were playing with 9 minutes left in the game, right? That's it. It was a blowout. TLC did have a low-key good game. I'll give him respect. In garbage time minutes, he played all right. He had some layups. He had some shots. Good for him. Love it. Good for TLC. You love to see him succeeding in this minuscule role that he has now. But look, it was just fun, right? KD shot 80% from the field, 50% from 3. Like, he's not missing, right? Like you see one game where his shots are rimming out. He doesn't like that rim. And we were talking to Eddie, and obviously Eddie, they do the podcast together. They're close friends. And we were talking to him, and he was like, "Nah, K doesn't like those rims," because like he swore they were like 10 shots. They were all halfway down, and they came out. Whatever. He responds to it with a great performance, 80% from the field, shooting at a ridiculous level, but also putting up his assist numbers, getting those 13 assists, those 8 rebounds. He was threatening for a triple-double in that game, and you just love to see it, right? Because obviously he's back. But look, like Keith said, there's not too much to read into this game. The Nets did what they had to do. We love that Jared Allen was back. We love that he had that great return. He gave the smile and the wave to the crowd. He seemed like he was a little emotional. I would be too. But look, it was just great to see the Nets finish out the season strong. They got the right energy, the right momentum going into the playoffs. But I said it on Twitter last night, right? Regular season's not real. That's not the real season. It doesn't matter. We could have gone 72-0. Wouldn't matter if you lose in the playoffs, right? Now the real season happens. Now we got to look at the play-in game. Are we playing the Celtics? Are we playing the Wizards? Whoever it is, we just got to win. We got to handle business. We have to win a championship. It's championship or nothing. And that's the, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? It's the end of the story, Keith. If we can't win a championship this season, I'm not even looking at next season. I'm not talking about, how many championships we're going to win. If we can't win a championship this season, the year's been a bust, Keith.
No, we're winning it. One more from our guy, Jeffrey. Come on.
What's up, guys? It's Jeffrey, and I'm fully confident that the Nets can win in the 7-game series. Blake Griffin is a behind-the-back pass. Mike James off the backboard alley to KD. The energy and chemistry is 100% there. The defensive intensity these last few games have been absolutely insane. I know he played against the Bulls, Spurs, and Cavs, but these are pretty much warm-up games for the playoffs. Clax is a tremendous defender. We've seen what he can do against elite bigs. Max Bruce is built different. Mike James running the point off the bench. Uncle Jeff hitting big shots. And even without the big 3 on the court, the secondary is really damn good. I can't talk enough about Clax and Bruce. We all know what they can do. Harden isn't even at his full form yet. And I see Spencer Dinwiddie's workout recovery post on IG. He looks healthy. If we can play them in a 7-game series in the conference finals or the finals, the team is not getting stopped. My worries about CMAX are pretty much gone. And yeah, that's pretty much it. On to either Washington or Boston.
On to either Washington or Boston. And that leads us into our quick talk about this whole play-in. So the way the play-in is set up, the lower two seeds will play, and that's the 8-9. And then the winner of that will go on and await the loser of the 7-8. And then that, like, once they play, that becomes the 8 seed. In our case, the 7-8 seed, Boston and Washington will play, and we'll get the winner of that game. Hudson, who would you rather face? I don't know if you have a preference. I know I do. Who would you rather face, Boston or Washington?
Well, the Celtics are worse. They don't have Jaylen Brown, right? So if you want an easier playoff, you want the Celtics, but I'm not worried about either team. Honestly, I wouldn't mind either, because it's going to be a fun series if we play against the Wizards, right? Because you have, the Russell Westbrook energy. You have all, the beef and the storylines that come along with that. You have their energy. They're coming in on a winning streak. And look, either way, it's going to be fun. Obviously, the Celtics are the worst team. In theory, you want to play them. You want to sweep them out, be done with it. But either way, it's a fun series. It's going to be a good time. And regardless, the Nets are winning. So it doesn't really matter all that much.
Yeah, we're winning, and we might sweep that first round. It don't matter who comes through. But I would like it to be the Boston Celtics. I guess Tatum would have to go off in this play-in game. But I would like it to be the Celtics, just so we can start righting our wrongs and getting our revenge. And, like, I feel like it would just be poetic for them to be the first team on the docket. Like, let's go end their season. The Nets obviously have the history with them with the trade, and even just some of the little stupid stuff like the where is Kyrie stuff, and, Kyrie being a former Celtic. And I feel like it would be fitting for us to get the Celtics first round. So let's go Boston, beat Washington, and then come this way so we can beat that ass. All right, it's time to read some reviews and wrap this thing up. We're going to do another pod this week, probably Thursday, try and get one out before the week ends. After we see what happens with the play-in. You got LeBron versus Steph in the West. Like, we're all going to be watching those games, and I think the NBA did the right thing, I think, for 2 reasons, and we'll speak on it just because I hear a lot of talk about it. 2 reasons. People aren't tanking, and this is a shorter 72-game season. So teams didn't tank, and then teams also got an extra opportunity to get into the playoffs. Oh, and a 3rd reason, money, TV money. They're about to make some extra money this week off these games. What else is going on? The Yankees play in Texas. Like, I'm going to be watching all of these games, and I'm pretty sure the whole NBA world will be watching. So let's get into the reviews. First off, we'll read this one from, I think this one is from Jeff, like our guy Jeffrey. Thursday, Jeffrey writes, one of the best Nets podcasts out there. These guys are so chill. Fanalist of the game. They catch up on everything that's going on in the Nets world. I also love how they interact with the fans through live chats and voicemails. If you're looking for a quality Nets podcast, this is the one. 100 emoji. And then this is Jeffrey, by the way. Shout out to Jeffrey. He's been rocking with us for a while. You hear him call in. I always make sure to play Jeffrey's voicemail. He's a smart guy. He's a Talking Nets fan. Next one from Lil Meat 25. Lil Meat 25. I wonder who that could be. Maybe I don't want to know. Lil Meat 25 writes, 5 stars, Nets World. Podcast number 102, thumbs up. So I guess the last
That's what you need to do, right? You want to write a review, man. Just give us the review, dog. It's
I said on the
easy.
last podcast,
so
like, all you got to do is a thumbs up emoji. If you like the pod, send that review in. I guess, back-to-back wins. We control our fate. I think that was the last podcast. Vibes were high. We got a review from Lil Meat 25. Appreciate you. Now there's another Jeff. Jeff B. Pett writes, we go hard, 5 stars. It is a perfect podcast for everyday Nets fans. Leave the complicated X and O's at home. Let these guys break down what Nets fans want to hear. And that's it. Basically, when I looked at the landscape of podcasts and I looked at what was missing, I said, we're not going to try and be X's and O's guys. We're not going to try and be analysts. We're not going to try and be anything we're not. We're just going to be 2 dudes that follow the Brooklyn Nets and are fans of the Brooklyn Nets and want to see the Nets win a championship, talking every week about whatever the topics are, whatever the news and narratives are. And we appreciate the amount of people that have come to Talking Nets podcasts, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. we're just getting started. This is where the fun really starts in the playoffs. We appreciate you guys writing the reviews. Make sure you write a review. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you're on Apple, we have 83 reviews. We wanted to get to 100 before the playoffs. There's still time. So write us a review, rate the pod 5 stars, and make sure you subscribe. If you want to be heard on the show, leave a voicemail. The voicemail is 201-870-0461. We play probably 90% of the voicemails that come in. Make sure you follow us across social media, starting with our Twitter, 10K. We're very proud of that. It's just us two that built that. Hudson's hard work during the games, like clipping the live games, is really what drove that up. And then me just making videos, Twitchy adding some photos, some videos, and, just really being the pulse of Nets Twitter, literally just reacting to what the news is and what the fans think and being one of the people out there. So make sure you follow Talking Nets on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And that's all we've got. We'll be back. Like I said, I think I want to do another episode Thursday, and then that'll release Friday morning. But we'll see what happens with these play-ins. We'll see what happens in the Nets world with any news. And we're working on some new things, once again, for the playoffs. A new look, maybe some new T-shirts, some new style, different things out there. I think we hit on pretty much everything. I wanted to go for almost an hour today. And Hudson Flynn, I'll give you the opportunity to add anything else. And
let's close it out, right?
Down.
That's
time, it, man.
Playoff
that's
time.
It.
Let's get it.
I finally did what I wanted to do. I got to go make the vlog. I got to sit down today and vlog, our trip to Barclays. But I got us all together with that Let's Go Nets, Brooklyn. And that's the pod. All right, we got, let's say, 9 minutes or so. I haven't looked at this chat at all. Oh, Pinstripe Strong in the chat. What up? Asia in the chat. What up? Is Hudson a Yankee fan too? Of course he is.
I am a Yankees fan. Of course I'm a Yankees fan.
We should stream the Knicks playoff games. We're not going to play against the Knicks, so there's no point to stream the Knicks playoff games. Pinstripe Strong, y'all should live stream y'all watching these games. We definitely want to. I think we're going to set something up at my crib to do that. Appreciate Pinstripe Strong, my Yankee fam. Pinstripe Strong in the chat. Slick Nick said TLC had a good game against the Cavs. Yeah, good for him to close the season that way, because I don't know how much time he's going to get in the playoffs. So good to see TLC closing the book on his season with a decent performance. Let's see what else is in here. Celtics or Wizards? Yeah, I want the Celtics, honestly. Always looking for revenge. I'm holding a grudge. I would love to sweep the Celtics, and that's how their season ends. And then their fans got to look at Kyrie destroying them. So that is ideal for us.
We got how much is Joe going to average in the playoffs? 12 points a game. I think he's going to go off for 12 points a game.
The thing is, with Joe, there's a stat that says whenever Joe scores 20, the Nets win. So if we're expecting him to average 12, I don't know. If 12 off the bench is fine.
I think he's coming off the bench. I think we got the big three, Jeff, and then Clax or Blake.
Yeah, I think he's coming off the bench. And if he can come off the bench with 12 and 9 of those points being threes every time, that works for me. When I wouldn't want the Nets to win in 5 and not 4, so we can win the finals in Brooklyn and not on the road. I don't give a damn where we win the finals, because I know where the parade is going to be. I know where the party's going to be. I don't care where we win it. It would be cool to win it here. I'm going to definitely work on trying to get into some of those playoff games, but yeah, I'm not worried about that. Talking about the role players, I really do. I've been saying it for weeks, man. I think that's going to be the key to this. Everybody's going to be, all the casuals or all the NBA fans or sports fans that haven't really watched the Nets like we all watch the Nets. And I said something in my post-game video, like, if you watch the Nets this season and you followed every game and you listen to podcasts and you were up on everything, you're a Nets fan. That was your initiation. Now we're in the playoffs. All of us are Nets fans. And what the outside world doesn't see is Bruce Brown, Nick Claxton, Landry Shamet, Jeff Green, Blake Griffin. What the outside world sees is KD, Kyrie, Harden. And, those guys are going to have off games. They're going to have off nights. They're going to have nights where all three of them don't kill. But if that gives Nick Claxton an opportunity to crush it, or Bruce Brown an opportunity to eat, or Jeff Green to steal the show, or Landry Shamet to go off, good. That's what we want. Shout out to Salmon IFTV TEKHR Salmon Fire Nets jersey. Yeah, I felt like I needed to restore the feeling. I felt like, I was looking at all these things about the 0.667 win percentage and finishing 25 or 24 games over 500. And I'm like, man, this is the best Nets season ever. I felt like throwing on the New Jersey Nets jersey just to, show respect to where we came from in the roots. All right, that's all I got. Like I said, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're working on some things this week so that we can go into the playoffs this weekend. And I didn't even mention the tailgate Brooklyn thing on the pod, but we'll promote that. I want to do a watch party Saturday, but it sucks because everything's TBD. You can't promote something where you don't know the opponent, you don't know the time of the game. What if somehow the Nets are on at 1:00? Then I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. I have somewhere I need to be, but we'll see. We'll figure it out and we'll have time to promote. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Our world, Nets world.